And it will be fielded by D. Alford. Alford making a move 30, 35. Alford's got room on the backside, needs a block. He'll cut it across, and he keeps his feet, and D. Alford is going to score. A punt return touchdown for Alford, and Atlanta with 2:33 to go will send them to the exits in South Florida.
Inside the Nest, an Atlanta Falcons audio experience. Here is your host, Craig Green.
Touchdown Atlanta!
Training camp is in full swing with joint practices and the first preseason game, a successful one, in the books. Welcome inside the Nest. I'm your host, Craig Green. Let's get into it. So in the beginning of the podcast, you heard sound from the Atlanta Falcons radio network. The Falcons prevail 19-3 over the Dolphins this past Friday night. But before we get into the Falcons-Dolphins game from this past Friday night, let's take a look at some training camp notes. So early on in training camp, out of the first 2 weeks, who have been the standout star players, so to speak? First, we have to just give a shout out to Zach Harrison, the rookie from Ohio State, who has been flashing. He's been showing some quick feet, quick hands, been getting off the balls, been making plays, and has been turning a lot of heads the first 2 weeks of training camp. So good on Zach Harrison. Also, of course, we'd be remiss without mentioning Bijan Robinson, who is looking fast and physical and versatile, and so far so good, everything as advertised for the Falcons' 8th overall pick. Got to give a shout out to the entire defense as well, as they've been pretty stout in terms of protecting against the run. They've been doing well in coverage and not letting the offense walk all over them. Good on the Falcons defense. You know, now that they had money to spend to beef up their defensive line and their secondary, you can see a big difference in the coverage. You can see a big difference in getting off the ball. You can see a big difference in the athleticism and the nastiness, and that's something that Ryan Nielsen helped bring to Atlanta. So far so good. The defense right now looking like the part, looking like they may be formidable for once, as opposed to the offense carrying a majority of the load for the Falcons as they've done in the past several years. Also, Arthur Blank has been at training camp the past week and some change, and he did do a press conference with the media, and he talked about how happy he was with the development of the team and, of course, with quarterback Desmond Ridder. Here's Arthur Blank from AtlantaFalcons.com.
I mean, I think we're moving in the right direction. This year I expect our team to be even more competitive, if you will, with the emphasis on the defensive side of the ball during free agency and somewhat during the draft, but primarily in free agency. And I think we have as many offensive tools as probably most, if any, team in the NFL today. I like a young quarterback, and people look at just the last 4 games last year and they say, well, based on those 4 games, but he really, progressed from the time he came on campus here after he was drafted and had a good camp, and he's been a strong leader since he's shown up here. We feel pretty strongly that he's going to be our quarterback of the future, and we got to play games and we got to see, but we feel good about him.
Moving on to an injury update, Felipe Franks, quarterback / tight end, had a torn tendon in his foot. He was actually waived with an injury designation, and he will revert to injured reserve after he clears the waivers. You don't expect anyone to pick him up since he is injured and won't be able to contribute this season. Jeff Okudah, remember, he was carted off with an ankle injury. Okudah could miss the beginning of the regular season. He will definitely miss all of the preseason, but could miss a portion of the beginning of the regular season. But Arthur Smith said he felt encouraged by the news and the MRI results of Jeff Okudah's injured ankle. Now, Clark Phillips III, he was carted off with a leg injury during the joint practices, and last we had been told he is listed day-to-day. We did not see him on the field for the Dolphins game, so perhaps he can return for the Bengals game this Friday night in Atlanta. Now, Eddie Goldman, who had joined the Falcons last season and then abruptly retired, came back to the Falcons this year, but was put on the exempt/left the squad list. So not sure what's going to happen with Eddie Goldman. He may end up retiring again, but it's just not as easy as putting on the pads and coming to work as it may seem for all of us on the outside. Now, Calais Campbell is off of the non-football injury list. He had some off-season cleanup stuff done, as Arthur Smith tried to describe it as. He did pass his physical, and he was getting individual work on the side in Miami while the Falcons were having their joint practice. So Calais Campbell is back. He was in uniform on Friday night, but obviously did not play. They did not need him. Now, Taquan Graham, defensive lineman, is back from his torn MCL and is back at full speed. So in our last podcast, we weren't sure when he was going to return, but TQ Graham is back and he is good to go. And also Matt Hennessy, who is leading the clubhouse in the left guard competition, is listed as day-to-day with a leg injury. Now, Matthew Bergeron, the rookie from Syracuse, was getting first-team reps at left guard in his absence. Now, we did not see Hennessy on Friday against the Dolphins, but because the starters are going to play some minutes against the Bengals on Friday, perhaps we could see Matt Hennessy then if he's good to go.
Snap to Thompson, looks left, now throws back, and intercepted on the backside. Breon Borders, a house call and a touchdown.
Yeah, let's go back and quickly review the Dolphins game for those of you who saw some of it or didn't see any of it at all. So remember, the Falcons won the game 19-3 down in Miami. Yeah, Logan Woodside, the third-string quarterback for the Falcons, played the entire game. Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder did not play whatsoever. Well, the one area that the Dolphins had a lot of success against the Falcons on Friday was in the rush attack. Miami did give the Falcons some problems with several big plays of chunk yards, 10, 15, and 20 yards here and there. Even with all the rushing yards the Dolphins amassed, they were only able to muster up 3 points the entire game. And yes, their starters did not play, neither did the Falcons starters, but it was still, their 2s, 3s, 4s, and beyond against the Falcons' same reserve players, and the Falcons took it to them. But as a defense, let's continue to talk about it. The Falcons amassed 5 sacks, 3 interceptions. One of them returned for a touchdown, which you heard earlier on at the beginning of the podcast, and also a punt return touchdown as well, and finished the game off with a strip sack by Arnold Ebiketie to close the show with 2 minutes to go. It was such a refreshing sight to see. All right, so quick game recap from just the most memorable things that I jotted down that I saw. The first Miami drive was ended by rookie DeMarco Hellams intercepting the pass in the end zone, the 6th-round pick from Alabama. The second Miami drive, the most memorable play there was Michael Walker committing illegal contact on a 3rd down stop, which gave the Dolphins a first down. But although they ended up punting after that, Michael Walker was actually cut by the Falcons on August 13th. In the second quarter, the Falcons finally get on a board with an 11-yard touchdown run by Godwin Igwebuike. Now, Younghoe Koo did miss the extra point off the upright, so the Falcons led 6-0 after that. The Falcons got a stop on the next Miami possession from 4th and 2 at the Atlanta 3-yard line. Instead of kicking a field goal, they decided to go for it. The Falcons stood tall and firm, kept the Dolphins out of the end zone. And then again, at the end of the first half, the Falcons shut down the Dolphins on a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 2 from the Falcons' 6-yard line. Once again, the Falcons put the curtain up, and the Dolphins couldn't let themselves in. Now, fast forward to the second half in the third quarter. The first drive of the Dolphins was ended by Lucas Dennis, a reserve player trying to make the team, picking off new Dolphins quarterback Skylar Thompson in the first minute of the third quarter. Eventually, the Dolphins would work their way down the field with about 8 minutes or so to go and kick a field goal to get it 6-3. No more scoring. It was 6-3 going into the fourth. So in the fourth quarter, not a lot happening there, just running the football, defense, yada, yada, yada. So the Falcons get a stop on the Dolphins. Dolphins punt with 2.5 minutes left in the game. D. Alford takes the punt back 72 yards back to the nest to put the Falcons up 13-3 after Younghoe Koo converts the extra point. Then just about 13 seconds later on the game clock, Breon Borders picks off Skylar Thompson, returns it 26 yards back to the nest for another Falcons touchdown to make it 19-3 after Koo missed the extra point this time. Yeah, Younghoe Koo missed 2 of 3 extra points on this game. Not sure what was happening there. The snaps and the holds looked pretty good. For whatever reason, Koo could not bang through 2 of 3 on this night, this evening. But with 2 minutes left in the game exactly, Arnold Ebiketie strip-sacked Thompson, recovered the fumble himself, and that pretty much ended the game after Arthur Smith ran a little bit of 2-minute preseason offense to try to kill the clock and get some extra work in for his reserves. But after the game, Frank Darby was placed on injury waivers and will revert to IR just like Felipe Franks did, injured during the Dolphins game, so we will not see Frank Darby again this season. We're going to do a quick summary of this Friday's game and what that means. I mean, again, it was mainly the Dolphins reserves, the Falcons reserves, but, you know, it was essentially level playing field, and the Falcons just took it to them. I mean, it was, you know, just from a team that has not had much success defensively in the past several years. I mean, we're talking last year, the Falcons could not rush the passer, they could not get off the field on third down, and they could not stop the run. And those were the 3 biggest issues for them defensively in 2022. But in this game, you saw the Falcons come out and just look like a completely different team. I mean, the Dolphins did run for 168 yards, but third down they were held to 3 of 10 by the Falcons. The Falcons did a fantastic job against the Dolphins, all things considered, with the backups in and no real starters in the game. I mean, Arnold Ebiketie played a lot, and Ebiketie had a beautiful spin move on that strip sack to end the game. But, you know, from this game, I mean, DeMarco Hellams had a really good game. D. Alford, obviously. Breon Borders was solid. Let's see if they can carry it over to their game against the Cincinnati Bengals this Friday in Atlanta, where we will expect to see some of the starters play, whether it's 2-3 series, a whole quarter. Only Coach Smith knows. That'll be a big litmus test for some of the newer guys and how they gel together in real-time action against a real live opponent. So we're going to wrap it up for this Atlanta Falcons audio experience. As always, want to thank you for listening and want to invite you to follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Threads. Is it X now? We'll call it Twitter or X. All at Craig G Sports. Please like and subscribe to this podcast and add it to your notifications so when a new episode goes live, you are the first to know. So until the next time and after the Bengals game, we're going to say arrivederci, sayonara, and buenos noches.